Hello everyone, welcome to my art room. I'm Danae. I'm so grateful you're going to join me today. I hope we're going to have a really fun project. That's the plan. I'm doing another in my Color Cube series and I have moved over into volume 2. So if you've seen the other Color Cube series, they've all so far to date been in Color Cube volume 1. So I'm starting now with a volume 2 and I'm going to start with Color Cube number or palette number 500. So I started with 1 in Color Cube volume 1, and so I thought it would be fun to work backwards in Color Cube volume 2. This is a great palette, but wow, it's a lot of colors. 6 colors is a lot for me, and I'm not sure I can do it without making a huge mess. We're going to give this a try. So I have a variety of paints here. So for umber, I have raw umber. Slightly different, but it's very close. For flame, I have this Azo Vermilion, which I think will be a nice fiery color. For marigold, I have a couple of options. So I have this Americana paint in Sunset Gold, and I think that's a really good match. But I also have copper, which I guess could work for flame as well. So I don't know. I like painting with metallics because it gives a little bit of shine and shimmer and just a different kind of feel. So I don't know. I pulled it out. We'll see. For cream, I have this one, which is vanilla cream. I mean, it's practically perfect. I have warm beige here on accident. I have no intention of using warm beige. For sky blue, I have this beautiful turquoise deep. I think that's a really nice match. This is a really bright color. I can also add white to it and make it on the lighter scale. And for mint, I have this Chinese blue, which is a fabulous color. I love Chinese blue. So that's a lot. That's a lot of colors, a lot of paint. I pulled out some mark making tools, which I thought might come in handy. And I'm going to work on my mixed media pad. This is Fabriano paper, and it is 17 by 14 inches and 110 pounds. So that's a lot of colors, and I did a practice to see how it would do. And it's not bad, but it's really dark, and I think it needs a lot more light to it, and it was just kind of overwhelming. I mean, it's a lot of color. There's some interesting things happening here that I really enjoy. I used some collage and some different mark making tools, and I like some of the structural shapes that I created, and there's some blending. I used Posca markers to make some lines. Anyway, so I think this is, there's too many colors for me to do a full painting. So I thought what I would do is another grid painting. And I think the way that sort of my videos are being published, you probably will have seen me do another grid painting very recently, even though for me they're kind of spread out. I made that first, it's kind of a haunted aesthetic. I made it several weeks ago. But this one, I thought what I could do is in the different grids, I could combine different color sets. So, for example, I might use these three and these three, or I might use umber, marigold, and sky blue in one, flame and cream and mint in another, and sort of break up the palette so that the whole piece is going to be cohesive, but like in each square will be a limited palette. So that's my idea. And I think you're going to have to stick around and see if it works. Let's get started.
So I decide to start with my darkest colors and do this initial layer from darkest to light. So I'm starting with the umber, and I've actually gone to Chat GPT and asked um, for a grid painting featuring 3 colors in each grid and to create um, kind of a color key for me. So I've told Chat GPT how many boxes I have, how many colors I have, and I want unique combinations in each of the boxes with each of the colors. And so I was given a grid to follow, and I created a little map which you don't ever see in the video, but it's I taped it in front of me on my desk so that I could keep track of where each of the color combinations was supposed to go. So each color is in 10 squares, and every square is different. So that's my added little challenge, which turned out to be actually quite a challenge to keep track of where all those colors were supposed to be and which combinations were in each box. So this initial layer that I'm putting down is the background layer. I know it's the background layer, and I'm just trying to put down paint so that I can see what each square is going to look like in terms of what color is in each square. And so just to fill the boxes, and I know I'm going to add more layers. I want to do some mark making. And so yeah, this is just the bottom layer, and I decided to start dark to light. So now I'm adding the light blue, which I end up adding more white to make it really light. And I harmonized all of the colors by adding a little bit of umber, the burnt umber, to each of the colors on my palette. So each one of those colors has a little bit of burnt umber mixed into it, which kind of muted them all a little bit, and it just makes it really cohesive. So I think that worked out really well. That worked in my favor. Having now done this large scale, so one big painting with all of the colors, and now these 20 little mini paintings with all of the colors, I wouldn't say one was either easier than the other. I think both of them challenged me as an artist, as a painter, and in different ways. So I know I've kind of flipped through this color cube number 2 box. And she actually, Sarah Renee Clark, is the one who did the color cube. She actually has quite a few palettes with 6 colors. So I might have to get kind of creative in what I do when I get to those palettes. And maybe that means I'm going to drop some colors out, or maybe I'll mix some colors. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do, but this was a challenge. So many colors was a challenge, but it was fun as well as like a creative play. Um, trying to get each box to be different and yet interesting and individual and keep track of all the colors in every box. It was an interesting challenge. I've edited this quite heavily because this did take me a while. I didn't want to edit things out completely for anyone who was kind of interested in seeing the whole process. But a lot of it is edited, and this actually took me 3 days. So I've condensed it down. I think this video is just over 20 minutes long, but this was actually about 3 or 4 hours worth of work. And when I started to get frustrated, I would stop. I would let it dry. I would walk away. I would work on other projects. I would do other things. And then I would, come back and kind of sit down and focus on it again. So, what you're seeing is a really small part of the process, but I've included, I think, enough for anyone interested in kind of seeing the whole process. I think there's enough video that you can watch it. And this is sped up. This is 3 times speed. So I'm painting really fast. What I noticed as I painted, having the small spaces and having, kind of I put the limitation on myself that each square was going to have only 3 colors, and I assigned each square a specific 3 colors. And so I felt like I didn't end up having a lot of freedom to create, that it was really kind of a rigid limitation. Whereas with the big painting I did in this same palette, which I didn't film because I just wanted to practice and kind of see what would happen. I felt like I had too much space. So I don't know what the answer is. Maybe for me, it's just fewer colors. Here I'm just using a Neocolor 2 crayon, which is water soluble, and I'm adding pigment and then I'm blurring it out with water. All that's on that brush is water. And I'm being very safe. Like, even in the moment of creation, I knew I was playing it safe. And, being very careful about my marks. And I did a lot of like tone on tone. So here I'm putting the blue on the blue, and I put the red on the red, and I'll put yellow on the yellow. And I mean, I think there's definitely place for that, but for me, I was just really like not being brave and not being bold. And I recognized that even in the moment that I needed to make these squares interesting, I needed to trust myself more, and I needed to be more bold. But at the same time, I had already committed so much time to making this painting that I was afraid of like messing it up, so that I would have to start over to post a video, which I didn't want to do because I'd already invested so much time. That spray that I just put on is a fixative, and it will just dry and fix that water soluble crayon, so that it won't continue to smear or be susceptible to any kind of liquid as it's dried, and I'll keep those marks. And here's just a Posca pen, and you see I'm being safe. I'm doing tone on tone. I'm putting this creamy beigey white on the creamy beigey white. And here I'm like trying to kind of color outside the lines. That's really what it is. Like, I don't know why. I felt really confined being limited to these little squares and having so many colors. Here I'm just wiping off the excess moisture, and I'm pretty sure at this point I let it dry. And this is probably the next day here. So I'm feeling better about it as I'm getting through that messy middle. And I know that I need to sort of figure out what shapes I want in the end. So the beginning for me is really easy. The beginning stages of a painting, when you can just paint anything, anywhere, any way, it's so free. But eventually I have to move from like that full creative play to kind of making some decisions about where I want the end to be. And so at this point, I know I need to move in that direction. I need to move towards a finished product. I can't just layer and layer. And I mean, I could just keep on layering forever. But eventually, I do want to get the painting finished so that I can edit it and I can post it. So here I bring in some help. I think stencils are great ways for me to kind of quickly do some mark making and to kind of, quickly move into a position where I have something to respond to. So I find for myself that when I put marks down, it's easier for me then to see what I like, what I don't like, and I can respond to them. And that helps me move forward towards the finished piece. So I will put the information for that stencil in the description box. It's from stencilgirl.com. And you can find that in the description box if you want to look for that. So here I'm definitely moving towards the end. I'm starting to define my shapes. I'm looking at each square individually and I'm trying to bring each square to a complete phase. So I'm going to do my final kind of layers. Now at this point, I want to identify structures that I want to keep, and I want to start eliminating things that I don't want to keep. And I do feel like I I get a little bit more brave at this point, and that also helps to propel me to the end. And at this point, I'm being much more aware of the marks I'm making. So there's a lot of edits here because I moved a little slower and I did less and less and less in each square until I got to a point where I was happy with what they looked like. And that's a really good feeling to get to the end and feel like, yeah, things are done. And here it is. I've decided that this is the end, that I'm happy and I'm excited to see. So I've painted over those tape layers so I can see where the tape boundaries are, but I'm excited to see what each square is going to look like. And it pulled up a little bit of the paint there in that corner, which I am going to fix. I keep that little piece and I do fix it. So it's fun to, this is kind of like the big reveal, to pull the tape layers away and really get a good idea of what each square looks like. So after several days of work, this is a really fun moment to see the conclusion. And I'm just going to use some matte medium a tiny little bit, and I put that little piece down and smooth it, and it's perfect. And here it is. And I do think each square has a unique personality, a unique voice. I don't love each square, but I do like a lot of them. And actually, it makes me think that it would be fun to do some larger pieces based on some of the little squares that I really like. So if you see a square you really like, leave me a comment and tell me about it. And maybe I'll try to do a bigger version. Thanks for sticking with me, and I hope you enjoyed this. I would love it if you would subscribe and if you would watch some more of my videos. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.